Hello and welcome. I am Ladi Akeredoluale. Tonight, 14 persons confirmed dead and over 200 others hospitalized following outbreak of cholera in an IDP camp in Borno State. National Association of Resident Doctors takes Nigerians by surprise, orders its members to embark on strike after talks with the federal government. South Africa says killing of Nigerian businessmen allegedly by the country's police is a grievous action, promises quick probe. And United Nations seeks tough approach to North Korea's missile program, says Pyongyang's actions are destabilizing global security.
And in business news tonight, Nigeria's manufacturing sector sees sixth consecutive expansion this year at 57.4 points in August.
And in sports news, Cameroon forced Nigeria's Super Eagles to a draw in the 2018 FIFA World Cup qualifier in Yaoundé.
We begin tonight with the outbreak of cholera disease at an internally displaced persons camp in Maiduguri, the Borno State capital, where no fewer than 14 people have died. More than 230 others are receiving treatment for the same ailment in 2 health centers in the state capital. The Borno State government says if not for its level of preparedness for the outbreak of diseases, the number of those affected could have been higher, considering the clustered lifestyle of the IDPs.
Internally displaced persons in Maiduguri are in the news again, but this time not over the shortage of food or suicide attacks, but another outbreak of cholera. Displaced persons at the Muna Garage camp have been vomiting and battling with diarrhea for the past 3 weeks, a condition which has claimed 14 lives already. The state government, in partnership with the United Nations Humanitarian Agency, has set up an emergency healthcare center at the Muna Garage IDP camp to cater for those affected.
For the last 3 weeks, we've had problems of diarrhea and vomiting, particularly in this camp. And so far, we have confirmed about 3 cases that were positive for cholera. So we swung into action. So far, apart from the treatment center that we are standing here in Muna Camp Garage, we have another one in Dala that has almost 90 patients. I went there yesterday, although almost 80% of the patients there are already almost ready for discharge.
Humanitarian partners are also on the ground to support efforts by the state government. They are hoping that the prompt medical attention given to those affected will reduce the spread of the disease.
We are really appreciating of the speed and the commitment and involvement, and the only thing that we can do from the United Nations side is really through the partners of UNICEF and WHO and others to really support.
Enlightenment campaigns have started at the IDP camp and at other camps too. Aid workers have taken it upon themselves to educate the people and their host communities on how best to prevent the disease and live a healthy life.
Meanwhile, resident doctors across Nigeria today began an indefinite strike, insisting government must heed to their demands or face a total collapse of medical services in hospitals across the country. The doctors, amongst others, are asking the federal government to enroll them in the integrated payroll and personnel information system. They say the demands are long overdue since 2013.
It's not the first time resident doctors are threatening to down tools over government's failure to meet their demands. What is different now is that the threat has become a reality. It means many federal and state government hospitals across the country will be shut, and patients left at the mercy of nurses and other health workers. The declaration of the takeoff of the strike came as a surprise to many. That's because the union had a meeting with the Labour and Employment Minister on Friday, September the 1st, and an agreement was supposedly reached.
NAD agreed to meet in an emergency session before Monday, September 4, 2017, which is the deadline for the commencement of their strike action, for the presentation of this memorandum of understanding to our National Executive Council with a view to averting the scheduled strike. This conciliatory meeting was adjourned, and we adjourned to reconvene on Thursday, November 2, 2017, to reappraise the implementation of this collective bargaining agreement completion.
It is clear that the doctors can no longer wait till November the 2nd, and they have damned all negotiations, insisting they had waited long enough since 2013.
I want to assure Nigerians, assure the Honorable Minister of Health and Honorable Minister of Labour that these hours we spent here will not be in vain. We issued a 21 days ultimatum. We've also issued a notice of strike. And we believe that the conclusions we've reached here are far-reaching, and that they will go a long way in assuaging our members that already aggrieved and feel that all these issues have not been sorted out.
They are frowning at the failure of government to pay the shortfall of their salary in 2016 and that of January to May this year. They've also identified the failure of the government to rectify the salary shortfall from August 2017. Failure to correct the stagnation of promotion of members and properly place them on their appropriate grade level. Failure to enroll and capture members on the Integrated Personal Payment Information System, and failure of government to budget, deduct and remit both the employer and employee's pension contributions to their retirement savings account since 2013. Now that the hospitals are shut, the people will have to bear the consequences, since these doctors are resolute and are not willing to go into fresh talks. What this means is that government will have to review the doctors' demands as soon as possible, or plead with them again to enter into fresh negotiations. Wherever the pendulum swings, the plight of patients should always be everyone's priority.
Meanwhile, it's just day one of the strike, and many hospitals are already feeling the absence of the doctors. The masses may already be bearing the brunt. Our next report takes a look at how much compliance this industrial action enjoys from across the country.
Shall we commence this meeting with a word?
Hours of negotiations and meetings appear to have failed to avert this industrial action. On Monday, Nigerians woke to the news that the National Association of Resident Doctors had resolved to proceed on an indefinite strike. Channel's correspondents were at different hospitals across the country to check the level of compliance by resident doctors. At the National Hospital in the Federal Capital Territory, doctors are said to be working.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Tayo Hastro.
An official of the hospital, however, says the facility is prepared for any outcome.
But for now, we did not have any meeting with the management for now, and I'm sure maybe by the end of today or tomorrow morning, they might go in full force to join the strike. And it's good to note that it's only resident doctors that are ongoing on these strikes. Don't forget, the consultants are on ground working.
The situation is different in hospitals in Kaduna and Bauchi State, as resident doctors have withdrawn their services in compliance with the directive by the national body of the association. Although human and vehicular movements were low at the hospitals due to the Salah holiday declared by the federal government, at the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University Teaching Hospital, Bauchi, no resident doctor was found on duty. Members of the Association of Resident Doctors in the University of Ilorin Teaching Hospital have also joined the strike action. The chairman of the chapter is urging the federal government to quickly meet the demands of the doctors.
ARDUITH Ilorin, we are definitely 100% in support of the strike that is being declared by the national body. And the reasons being that as a branch of NAD, and as resident doctors in Nigeria, we are being heated by most of the things that NAD is agitating for. Now, when you talk about no work, no pay, we've been victims of such.
Meanwhile, the Association of Resident Doctors in the University of Benin Teaching Hospital have withdrawn their services in compliance with the strike called by the national body. Resident doctors at the Federal Medical Center Asaba in Delta State have also fully complied with the directive. Confirming the compliance, the chief medical director of the hospital made it clear that medical activities are still going on despite the strike action.
If not for the public holiday, the hospital should be busier than it is right now because all other paramedics and the consultants are on ground and they're seeing their patients. So by tomorrow, hospital should be running to an appreciable extent.
In the days ahead, most hospitals will have to cope with the implications of this indefinite strike action, even as many hope that a resolution will be reached as soon as possible.
Meanwhile, the Minister of Labour and Employment, Dr. Chris Ngige, has reconvened a meeting of the Doctors Association and the federal government scheduled to hold at noon on Wednesday, September the 6th, instead of November the 2nd as earlier planned. The minister expressed disappointment and shock at what he terms the sudden U-turn by the leadership of the association, asking them to go back to work. The minister, after, explains in a text message to Channels Television that the doctors had reached an agreement with the Federal Ministry of Health on their 6-point demand, with timelines duly signed. Meanwhile, the national president of the Nigerian Medical Association, Dr. Mike Ogerema, is surprised at the decision by the doctors to down tools. Dr. Ogerema, who spoke to Channels Television via the telephone, explained that the NMA had been part of last week's negotiations, where the federal government had provided a timetable for meeting the resident doctors' demands. In spite of the resident doctors' certain decision to down tools, he also offered assurances that the strike will not paralyze medical services at government hospitals nationwide.
Government on its own, ab initio, was wrong. But now taking this decision is wrong. So two wrongs cannot make a right. We are appealing that that strike they are declaring today should not come into being. We still have up to the end of the day to appeal to them. NAD should not equate themselves with ASU. Death from ASU strike is a long-term effect. Death from NAD strike is immediate. Our patient will die. And that is not the oath we take as doctors. The resident doctors form the largest affiliate bodies of Nigerian Medical Association. We have other doctors on ground. The consultants are not supposed to be on strike. Doctors in state appointments should not be on strike. Consultants are at work. The nurses are at work. All other members of hospital workforce are on ground.
Staying with the story, the special advisor on media to the president, Mr. Femi Adesina, says President Muhammadu Buhari is worried about the gale of industrial actions by workers, first the university teachers and now the resident doctors. Mr. Adesina says there will be concrete decisions by government to douse the tension created by the strikes.
The president is the captain of the team, but then you know that the president has so many other people working with him who we can say will be the first line of defense when it comes to things like this. I think the president is the very last line of engagement. But knowing that the president is the captain of the team, his interest will be that there is peace and tranquility in every sector in the country. So the needful will be done. Yes, naturally, the president will be concerned because he is here to ensure that every sector of the polity, every Nigerian gets the best from the polity. So naturally, he should be concerned if there are gales of strikes all around. And he will do the best through his aides, through the ministers and those that have been appointed to be the first point of contact on those things. The best will be done.
The issue of minimum wage has been a major one on the lips of many workers across the country. What can you tell us is the latest that the government is doing?
You will recall that a committee has been empaneled to work that out, which is like a rainbow committee drawn from different parts, the public sector, the private sector, all stakeholders. A committee is already empaneled to work on that, and as soon as the committee concludes its work, I'm sure the next steps will be taken.
Special Advisor Media to President Buhari, Mr. Femi Adesina. In part two, after the break, President Buhari assures Nigerians of his commitment to serving the nation, vows to pursue policies that will change Nigeria for good. Please stay on with us.